Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome back to the conversation. We've got an exciting morning ahead today, and I just couldn't be more thrilled. We've got some of your colleagues coming on to join the conversation this morning live. We're going to, chat and have a good time together. But as we're giving everybody an opportunity to come on, let's do our normal wake up, if you will, and invite everybody to start telling us who's out there and where you are this morning. And we'll get going here in a second. While we're waiting on others, I want to do a little housekeeping. I just want to remind everybody that, we've got this LinkedIn group that we put together that helps us not only, it's a little bit of what we're doing today, carrying this conversation out in the field and being together and being more collaborative. And that's that Continue the Conversation LinkedIn group. And if you want to be part of that, just send a note to find that page and ask to join. Or send a note to Jody or Jim, and they will get you linked up. You can send that request or any questions that you would like to have us address during this time to lcsquare@floridaflpress.com, lcsquare@flpress.com. So please do. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to have you join that group. Good morning, everyone. Jessica, good morning. You're in beautiful Stanford, Florida. Good to see you. Caroline, I know where you are. Good to see you. Others, come on in and join us this morning. But we're going to do a little bit of something. We're going to do something a little different this morning. It's not just me. We call it OMG. We're open mic group this morning. We got three very good, solid colleagues that are excited to be with you. Good morning, Rebecca from St. Pete. Barretta, good to see you from Decatur, Alabama. Roll Tide. Yes, sir. Go Vols. We love seeing you. Hey, Bill, good seeing you again. So we're going to be open. We got an open mic group and we're going off the cuff, right? So I'm telling you straight up, I didn't put a lot of prep into this. I want it to be as real as it can possibly be. So I want you to join me in welcoming Jeff Freed this morning. He's coming live. Where you at? Fort Lauderdale this morning, Jeff?
Yep, Fort Lauderdale.
Live from Fort Lauderdale, down the street a little bit. Are you in West Palm or Miami, Patrick?
I'm actually in Jupiter, Florida today.
Jupiter today. So Patrick Fuente, thanks you for being here. And Kristen Boothroyd, thank you. And I'm assuming you're live from Sarasota.
You got it, Sarasota.
All right. We've got the corners of Florida covered. That's awesome. And I'm in beautiful Naples, Florida. So let's take a second. Let each of you introduce yourself. Christian, start off and just let everybody know a little bit about you and we'll jump into it.
My name is Kristen Boothroyd. I'm with the Observer Media Group, and within the Observer Media Group, we have the Business Observer paper, which publishes legal advertising across 10 different counties in Florida, and I oversee the operation.
Excellent. Patrick, jump in there.
Yeah, Patrick Fuentes, Director of Advertising for McClatchy here in the Florida region. We have the Miami Herald and the Bradenton Herald here in Florida, and been in the industry leading here in Florida for about 7 years. Thanks.
That's awesome. All right, Jeff.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Freed, Vice President of Operations, predominantly in public notice, legal notice advertising for ALM Global. We have 3 papers here in South Florida, the New York Law Journal, the Fulton County Daily Report in Atlanta, and the Legal Intelligencer in Philadelphia. And I oversee all of those.
A lot of activity in your space these days, as we all know. We'll have a session on that. We're going to talk about that at Mega quite a bit next week. All right, Virginia, welcome. Lexi, Lori, Angela. Glad to have everyone this morning. All right, let's get into this. I've known these colleagues for a while. I've known Patrick for the longest. We worked together actually for several years, and I've got to know all 3 of these young leaders very well, and they're leading from different corners of our state. They have a little bit different nuanced types of business within our industry, and they're growing in their profession, and every one of them are super talented, so we're glad to have you. So we're going to start off. We'll let Kristen kick it off, but I'm here to follow you on this conversation, this journey. So let's jump into it. Before we do, Dave, welcome. Carrie, welcome. So Kristen, what do you want to talk about?
Well, I was wondering about motivating employees. So when COVID hit, we all went to working virtually and working in different spots all over the state. And now that our processes are set to be virtual, it really is a benefit for many people to continue working that way. But one thing that I've struggled with is keeping employees motivated now that they don't see each other. So that was one thing I really wanted to know in this crazy world. How do I better motivate my employees?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think everybody's been thinking about that some, and the balance between, do we come back in the office? I mean, I even read an interesting article about what's the new dress code related to coming back in the office after working in your pajamas at home for a long time. My experience around motivation, Christian, kind of starts with the individual themselves, right? What are the things that get them up in the morning? Within their value set, what drives them. We're all come at this from a little bit different perspective. Some's our family, some of us we enjoy working with our colleagues. I think for us in the media, all of you are in the media space. I think we're fortunate in that regard because we do important work. The work we do has meaning itself. So connecting people to that work, helping them see the vision of the importance of what they do every day in and out, whether it's helping a business grow or whether it's helping a community thrive and grow and be strong, is important. But one of the things I would encourage you to do is just remember, we talk a lot about, when we got into our 5 leadership principles, about modeling the way, right? And we use a quote there a lot around, people don't care what you know until they know you care. And I think a lot of motivation for people comes from what they see their leader doing, right? So setting that tone, setting that expectation, but also showing some compassion around understanding that we are going through a lot. I've done some work in the mental health space during this period of time. And I can tell you, no one's immune to some odd feelings in the last couple of years. You don't have the creative energy that's created around the water cooler, right? There's people that have written a lot about the lost productivity, when we are in the office, about how much time we chat, but the value of that ability to socialize offsets any lost productivity by a great degree. So, Zoom's a strong tool. I think everybody's burnt out on Zoom, but at least you can see emotion, you can get to know each other. But what I find mostly is understand what turns them on, what drives them, why they're doing what they're doing, and connect that to your mission as best you can. And then you model, that compassion and caring. But I will say too, this is not a touchy-feely thing. This is really also about producing. So, in sales, in the area you work in too, particularly, it's kind of cut and dry. You either are hitting your numbers or you're not. So, you got ways to know whether people are being productive. I would guard against the tendency, when you can't see what people are doing, to maybe overmanage, if you will. Let the numbers speak for themselves, and then motivate them to achieve and be their greatest self.
Thank you.
Anything else, Patrick, Jeff? Any thoughts there?
I was thinking about, in leadership, how does a leader balance the objective of hitting goals and targets, but along with also being innovative and making sure that their organization is positioned for sustainability? There's 2 different kinds of approaches there. You have to, hit goals and do things, and it can be very regimented, but yet there's this other side that you have to be open-minded and go off and ensure that the business, like we talked about before, being a disruptor, not being disrupted.
Yeah. Well, it's a great question. I think I would start by let's talking about the media business where we are ourselves, and those that may be listening aren't in it, this can still apply. I think the biggest thing, Jeff, we got to guard against is something we talked about before everybody else came on, is our tendency to be concerned about, being in decline. And a lot of times, we get so focused on how are we going to be more efficient, right? Or how are we going to reduce costs, that we create a culture of anxiety right around that. And that anxiety then is kind of a race to mediocrity at its best. So in a lot of ways, in my mind, the way that you fulfill the obligation to generate results, like measuring the activities, measure what we want to see. But we remember in our sessions, we said, let's go beyond, that to inspire what we desire, right? So kind of balance that management requirement with a leadership technique, right? Through using inspiration. And then, and one of the things that I've always found that works really well there is taking those KPIs, if you will, or what are the things that we're measuring, like activity in sales, close ratios, account size, active accounts, those kind of things. Don't just use those to measure how hard someone's working, but take those and teach people how those building blocks develop their skills to be more successful. It's the same activity, but it has such a different feel, does it not? Right? We're investing our time in them, teaching them the competencies and the skills and the techniques for them to be successful. And the byproduct of that is a lot of the organic stuff we need to occur within the business is the natural byproduct of that.
Well,
so,
and I think that balances well with Kristen's question, because it's very difficult to motivate people and to show that care and other things that you were talking about if you don't have what you're talking about now as kind of a foundation.
Yeah. And I'll tell you another thing, I think in terms of inspiring people, we don't do enough of, Jeff. Sometimes we really aren't organized enough to talk to fact. So we get into a lot of, objective conversation, subjective conversation. We don't really have the data to support what we're saying in terms of our results. Go back to what Andy Robertson talked to us about a while back, our most valuable activities. One of the ways that I think is really inspiring is for someone to see back to they don't care what you know until they know you care, showing the care of teaching someone how to be disciplined and how to think critically about what they spend their time doing, right? Everybody's heard the old big rock thing, right? But at the end of the day, as a leader, are you leaning in? And Kristen, back to your point, you don't have to do that in an office. You can do that remotely as well. But are you leaning in, helping people get, through the day with those things that are going to create the most results for them personally? And that's going to be a byproduct win for you. I'll tell you too, not to interrupt, but I'll tell you too, when you start doing that, you're going to get to know these individuals on a more personal level. And that is really where the sweet spot hits. You've always want to be that leader that's going to influence, and you've also got to be, it's okay to be the boss. They've got to understand you are expecting them to produce results. That's why we're here. We're not here just to feel good. We're here to feel good and produce results and do good works in our communities. But the more that people know who you are, the more you know who they are, the more honest and more candid you can be. You should never have to fire anyone. Here's the best test to me if you're a great leader. If you're having to fire people, now there's always going to be a little bit of nuance of why you would have to do this, but they should never be surprised, right? What I have found, the best leaders are those that help people see that they are great people, but they may just not be cut out for the particular situation that they are in from a profession point of view. Help them find a path to either a better team, a different profession, or something, but don't belittle the person. Help them see their strengths. Help them see a path forward. You will have incredible results in your organization if you're good at that, I think.
Hey, all right. A little bit of a different take on this part of the conversation, right? But you talked a little bit about managing with KPIs and numbers.
Yeah.
I think about leading salespeople and sales leaders who are, in many cases, very well in tune with the numbers and the KPIs. Mm-hmm. Do you think you can coach or teach swagger and confidence? And what advice do you have to instill those types of things in your sales leaders or salespeople?
Well, as you know, Patrick and I worked together for a while. If people out there don't know, but as you know, we talked a lot about not winning the Salesforce game, but winning the market game, right? That's a tool to help you measure people's ability to convert their activity into results and things like that. But if you start using it in some ways punitively, so KPIs, you got to be careful with, in those regards, so they don't become a punitive measure, but they become something that you can launch from, right? So inspiration goes beyond, KPIs. KPIs are kind of the playbook, as we've talked a lot about, Patrick, too. It's really more the execution quality, right? So, teaching around that and those types of things. I do think, though, that people are inspired mostly and are motivated, back to all these questions, mostly by getting results. I'll give you an example. I was coaching a company, and one of their young associates in sales was struggling quite a bit. And we talked to them about going to this model that we were talking about a little earlier, get away from measurement of activity, but inspiration to results, right? So teach them how these activities benefit them. And this was a young lady, and she told me she'd always wanted this certain purse. And I said, you know, the beautiful thing about being in sales is you can give yourself a raise anytime you want to. So I talked to that manager about helping her understand how to use the things we were talking about, power hours that some of you we've talked about, you know, prospecting together and getting appointments, and then go out and bring somebody to model how they close business. So long story short, she started doing these things. She has now went from on a PIP program to being their top seller in 45 days. She's happier than she's ever been in her life. She's got that purse, man, right? And she's got 3 more she's planning to get. She's up to almost making as much as her manager does. She couldn't be happier. So I think the lesson there for me was that we as an organization in that case were failing her more than she was failing us, because she obviously had the ability. We just, back to kind of all these questions are aligned to this. We just were not creating a culture and an environment to bring that ability to the surface. As soon as we did, and guess what happened? I mean, I'll let you guess, right? What's happened now with that team? Everybody else is wanting to get a little of that, right?
Right.
You know, now you got the whole organization's energy level is significantly higher than it was 45 days ago. Because guess what? Back to your point. Why? They believe, Patrick, they've all got swagger now. This is a person that used to come in every day hoping nobody saw them because they were going to get beat up, but they didn't close anything or they didn't have enough activity. Talking about anxiety. Or if they're home, Christian, they're in their pajamas, curled up in the corner, wondering what they're going to do after they get fired, right? I mean, that's not swagger. You can't get out of her way now. She's knocking on doors. She's making prospecting calls. She's wanting to give herself a raise. But until she did it herself through the tools that we shared with her. Man, I told you we're going to run out of time, people. I just look, we're almost 17 minutes. This goes by fast. But once she realized she could, the whole team realized they could, and Patrick's swagger went out the roof. Confidence went out the roof.
That's awesome.
So back to that point, celebrate your successes. I guess that's one key way. Are you yelling from the rooftops what winning looks like? You know, we talk a lot about modeling. We talk a lot about discipline. We talk about these rigorous things. But do we show what good looks like in action? So when someone goes out and they accomplish something that they've worked hard to do, close a big account, or they save a big account, or they get an existing account to grow, do we reward the recognition of that by celebrating what that looks like in practice? Winning, this is what winning looks like. And here's the other thing. We got to get jealousy out of our cultures, right? So that people, you know, I've seen a lot of people, and in the back of their mind, they're kind of like, damn them, you know, they went out and got that big account, and I wish I'd have got my big account. We've got to genuinely, particularly if we're going to be in a role of leadership, really genuinely want people to be successful and win. And that's a key cultural factor. All right, we got 3 minutes. Let's keep going.
Bill, I think that segues into talking about a leader motivating their staff and other people. Do you feel a leader has a responsibility to create other leaders?
You know, that's a great question, Jeff. I mean, if you really get fundamentally down to it, that is the job. It is job number one. Now, let me qualify that a little bit. If you remember in one of our sessions, I actually used a quote. I don't remember who it was, but the number one job of a leader is to create leaders. We do not need more followers. We need more leaders. Now, what does that mean? That does not mean managers. That's where people miss it a little bit in my mind. Remember, you don't have to be in a management role to be a leader. If you're running a good team and you got a strong organization, everybody in that organization is a leader. They're bringing influence to the organization. I'm a strong believer that leadership is influence, nothing more or nothing less. If you have the power to influence, you have the power to lead. You have the power to get other people to act, to get excited, to participate, right? So if you're a leader and you're not teaching others influence tactics, how to be transparent, genuine, vulnerable. Remember, we talked about this in one of the sessions, vulnerability. That is really hard for people. But I will tell you, when you can say, and I think somebody asked a little bit earlier around this line, you know, how do you not appear weak? I will tell you, the strongest you will ever be is when you show vulnerability. I had a colleague one time, really, really good. I mean, super good. But she was a little Teflon sometimes. And she said, I don't understand why I don't really connect with people. And I said, it's very simple. You never are vulnerable. She comes in my office one day. She's kind of teary-eyed. I said, what's wrong? She said, I kind of broke down today because we run a tough business. And I said, oh, you did? She said, yeah, I did. I've never done that before. I said, well, what happened? She said, everything you said. I connected with people like I've never connected before. They saw the realness. They saw the genuineness. I mean, I'm tearing up telling the story, right? I'm not saying go around wearing this on the cuff. That's not the thing. It's got to be real. You got to show you tough when you need to be tough, but you also got to show you got a heart when you need to have a heart. I can't believe it, but we're out of time. I wanted to point back to people's comments over here. One of the things I'm asking everybody to do, I love these comments. So go back, everybody, and read these quotes. Beretta said, if employees are not talking about me, then I'm doing a good job. Do you agree or disagree with this philosophy? I think collaboration is very important. It's not about the me, Beretta, as much as it's about the us and what we're trying to do. We're going to continue this conversation. I just love this. If you like it, in the chat, let us know if this is something you've enjoyed. I think this is a good model. It's less classroom feel. It's more real. It's more getting to the questions that most people want. I doubt there's anybody out there that didn't have some degree of these questions in the back of their mind. I want you to go study the chat. One of the other things I'm going to ask you to do is please go to that LC squared or LC2@flpress.com and send us your questions. No matter what we do going forward in terms of the curriculum, we're going to take a few minutes and address your questions out there. We want to make sure that this content aligns to your greatest need. I also want to thank my participants this morning, and I want to congratulate them because each one of you now has won a book again for being here and stepping out and vulnerable. You made yourself a little vulnerable today. Doesn't it feel good, right? I mean, it feels great, right? And so each of you get a book. Jim has got various flavors there. Just let him know the one that you prefer. We talked a little bit about before we came on. We've been recommending it as, Maxwell's 365 reader. I think that's a great book. Everybody, please do it. I see some of you are saying you love this format. I appreciate that. Thank you, panel. I think this has been great. We will see you again next week. And in the meantime, lead on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.